So we're on part 2 of Memory, Chapter 9 by David Myers, AP Psychology Edition, 8th edition. So as I was saying, what we look at is the longer you actually have with no rehearsal, the more the decline will be. So long-term memory. As we look at long-term memory, it's unlimited. You can store as much information as your brain can possibly store. There is no limit on it. So you see all these nice memory feats of our actual world champions. And so when we actually store a memory, what we're storing is memory that is going to last a lifetime, as long as your brain and your health are going to allow you to do it. So storing memories in the brain, even when we do like electrical stimulation of the brain, Penfield concluded that old memories are still etched into the brain. Loftus and Loftus, please know them, they reviewed Penfield's data and showed that only a handful of patients that were stimulated actually reported flashbacks. So they did this and they said that only a handful will actually be able to look at flashback memories. And using rats, Lashley suggested that even after removing parts of the brain, the animals could actually still go through the actual maze that they had made them go through. And this is due to the plasticity of the brain. Your brain has the ability to kind of, it's not like it regrows itself, but it has a way of rerouting information so that your brain, your body can still go on. So when we look at long-term potential, this refers to the synaptic enhancement after learning. So an increase in neurotransmitters released, our receptors on the receiving neuron indicates the strengthening of the synapses. So when we're learning stuff, our brain is building more neural connections and everything is becoming better and stronger for our brain. Now stress does actually affect your memory. So during a heightened emotion, a stress-related event or something else that's happening in our body, we have stronger memories. But it can also disrupt your memory as well. Just because after you've been under a stressful situation for so long, think about the lack of sleep that you've had and everything else that occurs during this time period, and you just might not be able to remember a whole lot as you did previously. And so we have heightened emotions during these kind of time periods, and they do really make for strong memories. So we look at explicit and implicit information. So explicit is facts and experiences that you can declare and you actually know. So explicit is factual. Implicit is involving learning and action when the individual does not know or declare what she knows. So if we look at explicit memory, please know that it occurs in the hippocampus part of your brain. And this is facts, general knowledge, and you might have experienced these sort of things. Implicit is going to occur in your cerebellum, and these are things like skills, motor, and cognitive. And when you look at implicit memory, it's classical and operant conditioning has occurred for this to go on. So back there in chapter 8. So please know the differences between these types of long-term memory. Explicit is factual, happens in the hippocampus. The implicit is more of a procedural memory, and this occurs in your cerebellum. So the hippocampus is in your limbic system, and it processes those explicit memories. And we look at anterograde amnesia. So after losing his hippocampus in surgery, Henry M., he was a patient, he remembered everything before the operation but could not make any new memories, and we call this anterograde memory. So you have no memory after the actual surgery, so no new memory. And then when we look at implicit memory with Henry M., so Henry M. Is unable to make new memories that are declarative, factual, but he can form new memories that are procedural. So he could do things like skills, cognitive things. So he can do these tower games. When you look at cerebellum, cerebellum is a neural center in the hindbrain that processes implicit memories. So when we are retrieving information, I bet you guys know who these two people are, Oprah and Brad Pitt. We're able to retrieve this information out of our memory stores. When we look at recognition, well, this is kind of like testing, but it's something that we need to look at with memory too. In recognition, the person must identify an item amongst other choices. So multiple choice tests are really recognition. You either recognize the answer or you don't. So name the capital of France. Paris, right? D. Good. So in recall, a person must actually retrieve information, and it actually causes more effort. So fill-in-the-blank tests are harder for you guys. So the capital of France is, and since you don't have any choices there, you actually have to pull it all out of memory, Paris. In relearning, the individual shows how much time or effort is saved when learning material for the second time. So when your teachers make you do test corrections, what they're making you do is go back, look at the information that you missed, and relearn it. And it actually improves over time. It's easier. So retrieval cues, memories are held in storage by a web of associations. And these associations are like anchors that help us retrieve our memories. So look at all this, fire truck, and you can pull all these different cues out to help you retrieve it. So this is like when you guys want teachers to give you like, what does the word start with? That's a retrieval cue. So priming, to retrieve information or a specific memory from a web of associations, you got to have something that activates the strand that leads it to it. So priming, and seeing or hearing the word rabbit, it activates that concept, and then you're able to start spelling it appropriately. So context effects. When you wherever you study is where you should test. So scuba divers recall more words underwater if they learn the list underwater. And if they actually learn the list on land, then that's when they should actually take their quiz on land about the water. So where you study is important. Deja vu means I've experienced this before. Psychologists believe, a couple different theories here, but the cues from the current situation may unconsciously trigger retrieval of an earlier similar experience. So that's one of them. And the other theory is that maybe it's your brain kind of having a restart moment. Context effects. After learning to move immobile by kicking, infants most strongly respond when retested in the same context rather than in a different context. So it's best to test where you learn the material. Moods and memories are related. We usually recall experiences that are consistent with our current mood. We're in a good mood, we recall good mood memories. So this is mood congruent memories. So if I'm in a good mood, I only recall the best of times. When I'm in a bad mood, that's all I ever recall. So forgetting, our inability to retrieve information due to poor encoding, storage, or retrieval. And we have encoding failures. This is where we cannot actually bring up the information. So which penny is actually real? A is actually real, and most people wouldn't be able to pick that out because, quite frankly, nobody really encodes what a penny looks like. So storage decay. Poor duration of stored memory leads to decay. And so as time went on with Ebbinghaus's experiment, he actually had a forgetting curve. This is what he looks like. Okay. So after a while of you not studying anymore, there is a retrieval, a forgetting curve. You're not going to be able to retrieve as much as you once did. So this is like foreign language. This is really like if you don't use it, you lose it. So I haven't studied Spanish in many years, so I lost Spanish. I know maybe at best 30%. I might know even less than that. So retaining Spanish. So we see a similar pattern with our people who try and learn a foreign language. So if you're not using it, if you're not actually practicing it still, you do see a dramatic decrease in your language. So retrieval failure, although the information is retained in the memory store, it cannot be accessed. You have it in there, you just don't know how to get it out. And this would be like the tip of the tongue phenomenon. And this is just a retrieval failure. So if I give you a cue, like what makes blood cells red, the subject says the word begins with an H, hemoglobin, and that would help you out. Sometimes with memory we have these things called interference. And this is learning some new information that may disrupt retrieval of other information. So we have proactive and retroactive memory. So French learned beforehand interferes proactively with a Spanish exam. So if I study French and then I have to study Spanish, this French is going to move forward into my Spanish study and I'm going to forget the words. Now if I study Spanish, okay, Spanish learned afterwards interferes retroactively with my French exam. So I'm studying French and then I study my Spanish, but this time the actual information is going to go back to this French exam. So when I take my French exam on Monday, I'm going to actually be writing down some Spanish words because Spanish is retroactively interfering with my French information. So retro, this new information interferes with old. Proactive is when that old information interferes with the new. So retroactive interference, sleep prevents retroactive interference. So therefore it leads to better recall. People who sleep have a better memory. So you really should stop studying about at least an hour before you go to bed. And it's actually going to help you recall information better. So motivated forgetting. So we're going to look at good old Dr. Freud here. So motivated forgetting, people unknowingly revise their memory. We do kind of edit our memories. And then there's repression, according to Freud. And repression is just the defense mechanism that banishes anxiety, arousing thoughts, feelings, memories from our consciousness, and it pushes it onto the unconscious level. So why do we forget? There's reasons why some people forget things, but forgetting can occur at any stage, and we filter, alter, or lose much information during these stages. So you can edit your information, and that's why some people forget. So memory construction, we have misinformation effect. Incorporating misleading information into one's own memory of an event. So what ends up happening is you have this memory of like your 5th birthday, and because mom has been telling you the story about you eating the whole cake or putting your face in the cake or whatever it was that went on, you didn't really remember it, but you're starting to actually fill in little blanks. You remember a cake, you remember it being really nice, but you don't remember all the other little stuff. So misinformation and the imagination effect. Eyewitnesses reconstruct their memories when questioned about the event. So here's the depiction of the actual accident. So if I ask the questions, Group A, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? And then I ask Group B, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? My wording effect is going to change how the actual Group A, Group B answers the question. So when we look at memory construction, a week later they were asked, was there any broken glass? And so the Group B, the people who got the smashed into question, they reported more broken glass than the Group A, who just had the hit question. So source amnesia, this is attributing an event to the wrong source that we experienced, heard, read, or imagined. It's almost like you're putting words in someone's mouth, but you're not meaning to do it. It's just that you forgot where you heard it, where you read it, what you experienced, or what you imagined. Okay. So discerning true and false memories. So just like true perceptions and illusions, real memories and memories that seem real are difficult to discern. So when students form a happy or angry memory of a morphed, a computer-blended face, they made the computer-assisted faces either happier or angrier, and it just depended on the kid. So false memories, repressed or constructed. Some adults actually do forget childhood episodes of abuse. Now some really do forget it. Some just choose to not remember it. False memory syndrome, a condition in which a person's identity and relationships center around a false but strongly believed memory of a traumatic experience, which is sometimes induced by well-meaning therapists. So sometimes we have false memory. And so child eyewitness recall. Children's eyewitness recall can be unreliable, particularly if you have misleading questions. And you have to be very careful when you're questioning children. So are memories of abuse repressed or constructed? Most psychologists today don't believe a whole lot of the repressed thought. They don't believe a whole lot of kids or a whole lot of people actually repress memories. They believe that that might be a little overdone. So many psychotherapists believe that early childhood sexual abuse results in repressed memories. But when we look at the cases, you're looking at maybe about 10% actually have repressed memories. Most of the time it's like effortful forgetting. So however, other psychologists question such beliefs and think that such memories may just be constructed. So Elizabeth Loftus, she's the one that you need to know for her constructed memories. Her research shows that if false memories lost at the mall or drowned in a lake are implanted in an individual, they'll actually fabricate, they'll construct a whole memory around that. So the consensus on childhood abuse, injustice happens, incest and other sexual abuse happens. People may forget. Recovered memories are actually commonplace. Recovered memories under hypnosis or drugs are unreliable. Memories of things happening before 3 years old are pretty unreliable because we look at memories starting normally around 3 to 4 years old. Memories, whether real or false, are emotionally upsetting. So if you believe you were physically abused, then of course it's going to upset you and it could cause problems later in your adulthood life. Improving memory, how we actually improve our memory. Study repeatedly to boost long-term recall. Study more time rehearsing or actively thinking about the material, so rehearse. Do the time, the spacing. Make materials personally meaningful, which is what I've been telling you the whole year. Try and make connections to the material. Use mnemonic devices like the peg words. Make up a story. Have chunky mechanism, acronyms, mnemonic devices, things like that. Improving memory. Activate Retrieval cues, mentally recreate the situation and the mood. So, if I was telling you a funny story, think about that, and that might actually bring back that memory of the term or the event. Recall events while they are fresh before you start to actually encounter misinformation. So do some rehearsal. Minimize interference. Test your own knowledge. Do like pre-test. Try and quiz yourself. Rehearse and then determine what you do not yet know. So that's the end of Chapter 8, Memory.